Tonight, we have Eric Early. Eric is in one of the most controversial races in America as he takes on Adam Schiff in the 28th Congressional California District. Eric is highly qualified as a California super lawyer since 2005, but he will fix his district and America, which has been severely neglected by Schiff's fake impeachment hoaxes. America needs rebuilding, and after the Dems have done as much damage as they could due to shutdowns and complete neglect of our nation, Eric Early is just the person to fix it. He'll fight for the issues, he'll work for the people, and he'll fight to keep America great. Eric is not a politician, and he loves LA, California, America, and you. So thank you, Eric, for being here today. In your own words, why are you running for Congress?
And thanks for having me. Well, you asked me why I'm running for Congress. I boil it down to three words. I love America. And we're going through some very difficult times right now. If I want to just broaden out why I'm running, a couple things. One, I live in the 28th district, which is Schiff's district. And I used to, on Sunday mornings, I'd sit on the couch, watch the Sunday morning shows, watch Adam Schiff get on TV every Sunday on every show humanly possible, look at all of us and lie to our faces. I support President Trump, and I knew that when Schiff was looking at me saying that he had evidence that President Trump colluded with Russians to get elected, I looked at Adam Schiff and said, "You're lying to my face." I wasn't happy about it. So between him and the mainstream media that was pushing that story, I got more and more, let's say I got fed up. And so I stepped up. The other main driving force for me is that I've been saying for a number of years now, and I firmly believe this, that we're in a battle of good versus evil in America. We have communists, we have anarchists, we have, socialists, the whole batch of them coming out of the woodwork, and they want to destroy this nation. They want to turn this country into a Venezuela or a Cuba, and we cannot let that happen. So you put all that together, that's why I ran.
Well, I do want to first talk to you a little bit more about Adam Schiff. Wow, he's focused on one thing and one thing only, and we all know what that is, and that's taking out our incredible president while completely neglecting his own district as well as America. As a matter of fact, and something the news isn't even talking about a month ago, he already filed a February impeachment trial. More of the same. So, Eric, let's talk a little bit more about Adam Schiff in your district.
Well, Adam Schiff has abandoned our district for 28 years. He's a consummate political hack. He has his staffers here. Schiff lives in Maryland. It's a joke. He's got a 650 square foot apartment in his name in Burbank here in the district, in which he claims that he, his wife, and his daughter are registered to vote from that address. We know they don't live here. They live in Maryland. Schiff treats this district as if it's an afterthought, frankly, as a place for him that he can use as a placeholder till he moves on as he hopes to higher office or hire something. And we have huge problems out here, and I'm sure we'll get into many of them today. And Adam Schiff has just totally abandoned them. But he's good as a political hack at having his staffers, they'll get a call from a constituent, and the staffers will do their best to take care of the problems. So from that standpoint, he knows how to he plays a game. He dangles his involvement in this district over the heads of the constituents, but everybody knows that he's not here. And for the most part, most people know he could care less.
Well, there is a lot of controversy right now that everybody's talking about, and I think most conservatives are a little bit scared about it, but mail-in ballots, something no conservative is comfortable with. Every conservative needs to physically walk their ballots to the box, not mail. But what can we do to keep this election fair? Is there anything? Obviously, California was close to flipping red, as I believe most blue states were, which in my opinion is what mail-ins are really about, having the ability for the left to cheat. But why don't you give us your perspective on mail-ins and also what we can do to keep our votes safe?
Well, I'm very much against universal mail-in balloting. And, as we sit here right now in California, it's not really clear what's going to happen. I mean, people are getting absentee ballots, which I have no problem with. because absentee ballots, you have to go through the steps to get an absentee ballot. You actually have to prove you're you. You have to prove you want the ballot. And the ballot comes to the person who proved it's the person who asked for the ballot. Universal mail-in ballot, on the other hand, is just a bunch of bureaucrats dropping tens of millions of ballots in mailboxes and sending them out to addresses, many of which, a large portion of which, they have no idea whether the addresses are good or not. But as we stand here right now, I still haven't gotten a firm answer as to whether or not we're going to have universal mail-in balloting in the state of California. The prevailing thinking is that is what we are going to have, and I'm very much against it. It's ripe for fraud for all the reasons any common sense person knows. And we're living in a state here where we're run by this Politburo, I call it, these far left crazy Democrats who have no scruples whatsoever and are perfectly capable of doing all kinds of terrible things with balloting, with counting, with who fills in ballots that shouldn't fill in ballots, all the kind of things you can imagine. The Democrats don't seem to mind mail-in balloting. Certainly Schiff doesn't. He's always, it's one of his latest hoaxes. He's been dreaming up about something relating to the president mail-in ballots. But I'm very much against it. I'm very concerned about it. Another thing to keep in mind, the Postal Workers Union, about 300,000 employees, I believe, who will be controlling all mail-in ballots to a large degree because they'll be going through the mail. The Postal Workers Union is essentially owned by the Democrat Party. And so I'm not saying that every single postal worker is a Democrat, but the leadership is purely in the Democrats' pocket. So many of the rank and file are Democrats and in the Democrats' pocket. And I simply, with all due respect to them, I don't trust that entire union that's in the Democrats' pocket that handling all of our ballots. So it's very troubling. What will I do about it? Listen, my big issue is I'm in a district very heavily Democrat. This is an uphill battle. There's no doubt about it. We are thankfully, I've got the conservative and the Republican people voting for me. But there's no way I win this race unless we can attract what I call the moderate Democrats and as many no party preference independents as possible. And we're directing much of our efforts to getting those votes. And, that's what we're working on. And we're getting great reactions from people like that who, even though they voted Democrat most of their life, they know that Schiff has abandoned them. They know that Schiff lied to them also. They know that we have tremendous problems in this district and that instead of focusing on the problems such as homelessness, such as rebuilding from COVID, such as the increase in crime, such as the education stuff that I could talk about if you want to hear about it, such as this AB5 issue, which in California is a big deal, then instead of doing anything about any of that stuff, they see Schiff on MSNBC and CNN talking about hoaxes. He's the hoax king. And so a lot of those folks are getting fed up too, and we're feeling a lot of energy from them. And anything is possible in this race. We've really had a great and very successful nationwide fundraising that's been going on for months. We've done, knock on wood, quite well with the amount we've been able to raise. We're starting to talk to the people that make the television commercials now and all that kind of stuff. So, Ann, anything's possible.
Eric, the homeless. In a video that I watched you about the homeless, you said, I see people driving around here with blinders on as if this doesn't exist. I don't have blinders on here. These are people. Look at the way they are living. They're suffering. They need help. Welcome to Schiff's Los Angeles. Welcome to 20 plus years of Adam in Congress. And wow, what a quote. It was so bold and it was so honest. And then you go on to humanize the homeless as parents, kids, families, and we don't think about that. We kind of put them in a mental box and label them homeless. So then you said, I'm tired of this Schiff. Aren't we all? So let's talk about that because Los Angeles has one of the highest homeless populations in all of the nations. And so what is Adam Schiff doing exactly about it?
Schiff has not done a damn thing about it in 20 years, okay? Period. End of story. And we should not believe a word that comes out of his mouth because he's a pathological liar. All you got to do is judge the character by his actions. and go out, just take a walk down the street from where I'm speaking right now. You want to see a tent city. There are tent cities all around the county of Los Angeles. Large chunk of the county of Los Angeles makes up our district. There's 66,000 people living on the streets in the county of Los Angeles. Your viewers are all over, I'm sure, and it's just hard to wrap your brain around that kind of number. But they're all over the place out here. And Adam Schiff has failed us completely on that. It's been a complete failure. And I've got a plan to deal with it. So I'll be happy to talk about it if you'd like to hear it, Ann.
That'd be great.
Would you like to hear it?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is the story, and this would have to be worked out with experts and everything like that. But I've been studying this a lot. I've been talking to people about it a lot, and here it is. First of all, in Washington, D.C., I want to do whatever I can to work with others there. We need to rebuild our nation's mental health care system from the ground up. Starting in the 1960s, our nation's mental health care system, we had big mental facilities, mental hospitals, and they were decimated. They were taken apart, and hundreds of thousands of severely mentally ill people were let out on the street. And the plan back in the day was that they were going to create these local neighborhood mental health care facilities, and that people would be able to go and live with their families because they could be, filled with big pharma's supposed, miracle drugs. Well, first of all, the neighborhood clinics really didn't materialize. They were failures. They didn't go anywhere. They didn't really sprout up. And if they did, they disappeared. And big pharma's drugs have led to, a mass amount of people that are unfortunately ticking time bombs, walking around dosed to the max. I don't know if you've ever known anybody that's severely mentally ill. I unfortunately did. And I know families and people we know, families know other families, know people all around this country that know somebody that is severely mentally ill. And what you know is the way things are presently set up, there's nothing you can do with them. If you're lucky, you can get a 72-hour hold if something really goes bad, in a mental facility or something like that, or a prison, and then they're let back out. So we need to rebuild that. And you don't need to be a psychiatrist to know, if you walk through these homeless encampments, the large majority of these people are severely mentally ill. Not all of them, but the large majority of them. So while I'm in DC doing that, and that would be done, I would like to do that on a public-private partnership type of thing, because the government is essentially broke these days, trillions out the door on COVID, and all that. We need a public-private partnership there, get the private sector involved. We need to build really large mental facilities again for mental illness, staffed with the proper care. But locally here, we need a federal-state partnership, federal officials, state officials working together to get these people off the streets ASAP. And part of my plan is that we have vacant, dormant, unused federal and state lands all around the state of California. They exist in other states too, obviously. And on these lands, abandoned lands, are abandoned buildings, abandoned structures. They need to be fixed up. Doesn't need to be beautiful. Roof over the head for these folks. Heat. A separate lands for those with severe mental illness, with health care for them. Same thing for those with severe drug problems, and to the very small percentage that are living on the streets simply because they cannot afford housing, but they don't have those other problems. They and their families need to be moved far away from these other folks they're now living with, and put in areas like that. Not only fix up those vacant buildings, but to the extent necessary, we build huge, but I don't know if you've ever seen them, really serious and great tent structures that would have a separate tent really for each one of these homeless folks. Now, we're working under a body of law right now in all the states that says, and I think it's a crazy body of law, but it says that if somebody's homeless, they have a right to live on a street. And so you have to work around those laws to legally take these people off the streets. And I've studied other states. For example, there's something called Project Rio Grande that they use in Utah, where you can unshackle the hands of law enforcement. I'm a huge supporter of law enforcement. And we start taking these people off the streets immediately. The extent you have to do it forcibly, you do it forcibly. And then pursuant to the way they did it with Rio Grande, I won't get into all the details, you can actually work around the existing body of the law and get these people to where I'm suggesting. The bottom line is, though, you have to start with elected officials who actually care about this stuff. And all we got are a lot of talkers in the state of California. They've never done anything. They've made big promises. They've taxed us billions of dollars, and the problem only gets worse. So there you go.
So this next one, a lot of people want to hear about. It's what's going on with Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And the media can actually get people to believe that a few Trump protesters one night are to blame for months of looting, burning, murdering, beating, riots, and it's unbelievable, really, how people can be so easily convinced of the daily topic that they need them for breakfast. And I can't even get into Antifa, which is on another level of insanity, but maybe we can talk about Black Lives Matter.
I'll talk about it all, Ann. I'm not shy about this stuff. Maybe your viewers have probably figured out by now I'm not a politician. I don't talk like a politician. I don't need to talk like a politician. Frankly, I don't need politics in my life. I'm the managing partner of a really successful law firm that I started 10 years ago with 4 other guys. We have about 25, 30 lawyers. I run the business. We practice in courts all around America. You know, I'm very blessed to have that business. And I have a wonderful family. My fiance and I have 4 grown children, 3 dogs and 1 cat. And I don't need politics in my life. I got involved in this because of what I said earlier. I love this country. So I say what I believe in, and so when it comes to this Black Lives Matter stuff, you know, I've been very public about this and very vocal about it. I think that I know. Black Lives Matter is a race hustling organization. It's really it's a company more than anything else. Capital B, capital L, capital M. And they follow the Al Sharpton method of extorting millions and millions of dollars from big companies, from wealthy people who don't want to be called racist. And but Black Lives Matter is filled with communists, anarchists, you know, you name it, who hate our country, who hate our police, who hate our Constitution, who want to take us to a Venezuela type, Cuba type of government, who burn churches, who deface synagogues, and I could go on. And yet my moronic opponent, Adam Schiff, got on his knees at a BLM rally because that's what politically correct hacks like the Adam Schiffs of the world do. I would never support Black Lives Matter, and any elected official needs a lobotomy, quite frankly. And, you know, but while I say this, I, of course, support Black lives. I got lots of Black friends. And along those lines, I've known for many decades that Black Lives Matter. I do not need some brainwashed, demented millennial yelling it in my face every 5 seconds that Black Lives Matter, okay? Not needed. And, you know, and I'll say something else you're not allowed to say in Los Angeles. I strongly believe that white lives matter, and I believe that brown lives matter. I believe Asian lives matter. I believe Christian lives matter. I believe Jewish lives matter. And so, you know, if this company named Black Lives Matter has a problem with that, you know, they can kiss my butt. But that's what I believe, and that's what I have to say about Black Lives Matter. And frankly, you know, so there's no waffling about this with me. And, you know, while I'm on this subject, this goes into what I was saying earlier. You know, we're in a battle of good versus evil in this country. And now's the time for the good people to step up, because these evildoers on the other side are banking on all of us staying silent because of the methods they employ, that they scare people into silence. And I know you all know what I'm talking about. And we're Americans, and nobody's going to shut us up. And we cannot sit back and let those savages have their way. That's what I have to say about Black Lives Matter, Ann.
Okay. Eric, we have fires in California. California has been warned to take care of its lands and because of fire hazards, and we've done zero. Instead, we focused on social issues, political issues, emotional politics, coronavirus, taxes, keep on going. So whose fault are these fires outside of people that are deliberately setting them, which is also incredible, but what's going on?
Well, yeah, Mark Levin said something. He had a great tweet or something the other day that I think he said arson is not climate change. Because I think what I'm hearing is most, if not all, these fires we're dealing with out here now were set intentionally. But regardless, um, you know, I firmly, I when it comes to climate change, I don't I don't completely rule out the fact that there's climate change going on. I don't really know much about it. I think Gavin Newsom he's a climate change hustler, just like these others. I mean, for him to do what he did the other day and blame all these fires on climate change, Gavin Newsom is a sick tyrant, frankly, and just a pretty boy, a pampered pretty boy. He's not a leader. Uh, I tend to believe, from what I know, that the primary reason that we're getting these terrible fires, and they're terrible fires, we've got to do whatever we can to prevent this from happening on such a regular basis, is that it's my understanding that for years now, there has been no forest management program to clean all the dead wood, kindling, dead trees out of these forests. And in fact, it was consciously a decision to leave all that stuff in there because that apparently is something that environmentalists thought was the proper thing to do. And you know, these Democrat politicians, they're bought and paid for by public employees unions, environmentalist groups, the Soroses of the world and stuff. So they've let this stuff sit there and gather and build. And again, if we're basing this purely on common sense, it's pretty safe bet to believe that by not clearing that stuff out, that is largely or one of the primary reasons for these terrible fires. And if we had any kind of leadership in this state, we would embark on a massive plan of cleaning that stuff out of our forests ASAP and telling the environmental lobby to go do what they need to do. So that's what I tend to believe. But what I want to do is, as far as how do we prevent this stuff in the future, I want to sit down with the experts, and the experts are the firefighters, and folks like that who study this stuff, and I want to learn about it, and I want to know about it, and I want to make the right decision for all of us here in California, and all the great people of California. But thinking you're going to fight climate change, I mean, if you did every single change that this moron Newsom suggests, that's going to be a blip on the radar screen for 50 years or so, or who knows how many years or so before it does anything, and who knows even then if it'll do anything. And oh, by the way, when his policies, and hopefully he'll be out of office sooner rather than later, when those policies would have to go into effect, all the jobs that would be caused to be lost, and all of the other and the probably the increase in taxes and everything else that it would do to us would essentially be worthless, I believe, at the end of the day, because guess what? Communist China is not going to be doing climate change. They're still going to be polluting the planet. North Korea, you name it. So, this little pampered, empty suit, Newsom, and the pathological one, Schiff, can go on and on about climate change, but we've got much, much, much bigger problems right now.
Okay, well, you mentioned taxes just now, and let's talk taxes because California can't stop. And the Dems want to keep going, and they're coming for your income next, but we wake up to taxes all the time. So how can we beat taxes, the ones that are driving people out of California in droves?
Listen, I am so anti-tax. I've been endorsed by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. Just by way of example, I'm very proud of that. Big supporter of Proposition 13. The old one, not the new one somebody wanted to try and bring in, which would have increased taxes a couple months ago. Thank God that got defeated. Listen, I'm a believer in business. I'm a believer in the American entrepreneurial spirit. If you let our entrepreneurs go, take the shackles off of them, deregulate the entrepreneurs, deregulate the business creators, deregulate and take government out of the lives of the genius, the brilliant and talented Americans all around our country and all around our state. Don't tax them into oblivion. Do exactly the opposite of what these Democrats in the Politburo have been doing for years, chasing businesses, job creators out, taxing us into oblivion. We got to do everything the opposite of what they're doing. I believe the job creators will come back. That'll increase the tax revenues that come in. We need to cut our taxes that we're taxing on individuals. We need to do everything the opposite of what these people are doing that are destroying our state. And these are big issues for me. But we need to again, we need to unshackle the American spirit. And in this state, as in any socialist state or country, they trample on the entrepreneurial spirit. And the devastation to this state's economy and everything else that we've seen over the course of the last decade or so is a direct result of that.
You're talking about small businesses, and small business, if we didn't have enough with independent contractors being affected by AB5, then we have the fake shutdown. That's my own opinion, of course. And small businesses are drowning, and then we see the punishment phase of AB5 now, where Lyft and Uber drivers are essentially put out altogether and beaten down by this bill. It's just continual and it's spiraling. And
I'm also very much against AB5. Hopefully your viewers know what that's about, but just as a general overview, the Politburo, led by really a slob named Lorena Gonzalez, who is in our state assembly up there. She's bought, paid for, and owned by the public employees unions. And she pushed through with her fellow Politburo members, who are all bought and paid for by the public employees unions, AB5, which outlawed, with limited exception, independent contractors, freelancers, and gig workers in the state of California. There are over 300 different livelihoods of people who work in as independent contractors, freelancers, and gig workers. Everything from many truckers, many nurses, many people in the real estate industry, many transcribers, many people in the music industry, many people in the film industry in my district here work as independent contractors. The reason this was passed is because these public employees unions are trying to force all these people to become permanent employees and pay tens of millions of dollars in union dues to these employees. It's a terrible, corrupt law. Most of these jobs, there's so many of them that are affected, and they're supposed to affect over 900,000 jobs, don't lend themselves to becoming permanent employees for various reasons. And not only is it killing those jobs, and by the way, that's all the Uber and Lyft drivers, and over 70% of the Uber and Lyft drivers want to remain independent contractors. They don't want this government coming in their lives telling them how to live. And we almost lost our Uber and Lyft drivers 2 weeks ago because of this, for various reasons, which will take me a while to explain. But it's not only affecting them, there's small businesses up and down the state that can't afford to hire people as permanent employees. They hire people as independent contractors, freelancers, might work on a part-time basis and such. And those companies are now being forced to go under because they're not allowed to hire these people. They have to only hire permanent employees, which they can't afford to hire. It's a terrible law. It's purely a Democrat creation. It is Exhibit A of what happens when big government is so overbearing and so oversteps its bounds that it just jumps into your world and takes over your entire life. I support small government, not big government. So it's a terrible law. I'm very much against it. Oh, by the way, my opponent, Adam Schiff, not only supports this AB5 law, because he's bought and paid for by those same public employees unions, but there's a federal version of AB5 pending in the U.S. Congress right now, which would outlaw these folks nationwide, and one of the co-sponsors is Adam Schiff. I get to D.C., I'll do whatever possible to make sure that law never sees the light of day. So, Ann, I want to thank you so much for having me. I just want to close by saying, I firmly believe that America is the greatest country that God ever created. I believe firmly, very strongly, in American exceptionalism. And I believe, as former President Reagan used to say, that America is the shining city on a hill. but you could lose it all in one generation. And we're now seeing what's coming out of the woodwork here in our country. We can't be silent anymore. We can't stick our head in the sands and hope this will go away. We can't let these people scare us into submission. That's exactly what the Bolsheviks did when they created communist Russia. We cannot let anybody ever shut us up. We have to be strong. We have to support our president, and because he sees everything that I'm talking about here, thank God. And we got to keep fighting. We can never let these people knock us off the greatness of this hill, that the shining city on a hill that where our country is. So, with that said, thank you so much, Ann, and thanks everybody for listening to me.
We need you in office, and with your strong leadership and your love for America, you're incredibly qualified for this job, and we need you elected.
Thank you again, Ann. Folks, if you want to read more about me, if you want to donate, we're funded by, this is a huge grassroots effort from around America. Or if you want to volunteer, and we've got a lot of volunteers doing great things, please go to www.ericearly.com, read more about me, sign up as a volunteer. Would love your donations. And if you're in my district, I need your vote. So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, Eric. You just did my job. I appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you to those who tuned in tonight for our live broadcast, Eric Early for Congress. Thank you.